Hello and welcome to this Monday. We welcome you to as we talk about trading with technical indicators. My name is James Boyd. We have Ben Watson in the chat. We welcome him and all of you here today. Let's go ahead and hop right in. Today, I want to kind of take it at a different pace. I want to kind of really re-emphasize using a script to help read the chart. I have kind of prepared kind of many examples of how to read the trend, and we'll talk about that here today. So just real quick, as we get started, remember the information here is provided for general informational purposes only. Also, remember when we talk about examples, they are just that. We will be using the paper money software application known as the desktop. So make sure you're aware of that. And pretty much every class we do, almost everyone is on the desktop. So we'll get very comfortable with that. Investing involves risk, including loss of principal. And here today, what I really want to talk about is really how to read that trend. I want to talk about what it is and how it's used. And like I said, I have many detailed examples that we'll talk about. We're going to look at specific examples with detailed notes. So occasionally I write notes. Today I want to kind of make my notes a little bit more detailed. Now, number one is you could watch this. I don't think that's going to be good enough. I want you to watch and study this. Once you watch and study this, study means you watch it 2-3 times, okay? After you watch and study this, then you're going to take the study that you did, and then you're going to go to application, okay? So first off, what I want to do is when I talk about, just real quick, let's put this up. When I talk about that script that we bring up called the trend script, okay? I want to kind of talk about the purpose, okay? Purpose of this is to see momentum, okay? And trend. Okay. It can also help in terms of seeing support and resistance. Okay. And also price patterns. Okay. And I'm going to show you that here today. Now, the biggest thing that we can do with it is we can use it as a scan. Okay. We could use it in terms of entry exit. Okay. We could also use it as management of positions. Okay. Now, the biggest thing is what we're really trying to get to is become more timely and confident, okay? That's really the goal. Now, the whole purpose of this transcript that I'll go over in detail today is historically you would ask someone, hey, what do you see? And 100 people might see completely different things, and the timing of it was completely different. This transcript is actually trying to narrow that with a variance in answers to be more timely with what they're seeing on the chart and confident. That's the purpose. So when we talk about the trend script, okay, when I bring up that trend script, what we're really doing is we're going to go to, we could see the trend script, and I'm going to share this. Joe, I saw your question. We'll hit that. So when you take a look at the trend script, we could see it on the column heading, okay? Number two is we could see it on the monitor tab underneath our positions. We could see it on the scan tab, okay? Like you run a scan and you could put it on one of the headings. And then also, of course, we could also see it in the charts as well. So if you're watching this on recording, I'm going to share with you in the description the trend script, okay? But what we are really going to be doing is we're going to be talking really about the trend script on the chart, okay? Now, when we talk about this trend script, trend 1, 2, 4, 5. If you want to see a little bit more about that, we've talked about that. Make sure that you right-click on the heading, edit the formula, and that way you can see the reading of what that script is showing. That's not the only place you can see that, okay? But that is a place. What we really want to get to here today is we want to go to the charts, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to bring up this chart, and I'm going to bring up this one right here. I'm going to also share with you right now the trend script for the market watch and also the script for these charts that we'll be looking at here today, okay? So let me just do this real quick and go back to the market watch. Right-click, edit formula. Now, many of you already have this. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and being 100% fair, okay? So that, what I just sent to you is the trend script for the market watch, okay? Now, when we go to the charts, I'm going to go back to, for example, this little, well, not that, that. I'm going to kind of go back to this. Let me save it one more time just so we can be all on the same page, and that would be great. And save, and there you go. Okay, now let me send this out to you. I'm going to share this 3-grid with you. Okay, and let me put that right there, and it is also right there in the chat. So if you took that last script that I sent to you, like any other time, the very top right, set up, and now just copy and paste in. Okay, it doesn't get any easier than that. Set up, open shared item, and just copy and paste in. Once you do that, you can only really do one thing. You either click preview or cancel. We're going to click preview. And now you see it's a little 3-grid, just like I just showed you. And we'll say import that. Okay, now I'm not going to import it because I already have it. Okay, but you're going to import it if you want to. Now let's kind of go back to kind of getting some work done here today. So once you have this 3-grid, how do you kind of get it to magnify? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the 3 lines on that first chart. And this chart, for example, is your basic chart that we always use. Okay, pretty standard. It's a whole moving average. Okay, we've talked about that before. This is not what we're talking about right now. This is a basic chart. So if you want that basic chart, which many of you have kind of asked, there she is, and it's in all its glory. Okay. Second chart. How do we go to the next chart? Got a back arrow, forward arrow. We're just going to go the forward arrow, and it gets us to the second of 3 charts. Now, the difference now, what you're going to see is on this chart, we actually have, let's call it an oscillator at the bottom. We'll come to that in just a little bit. We also have the MACD. We'll come to that in a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to really zoom in on this, okay? Now, what you're now going to notice is we see differences in the colors of the candles. Okay, so let me go back to that first chart. You're going to kind of see we just had red and green candles. Now what you're going to notice is we see kind of like red colored candles, lighter green, darker green, orange, purple, and so on. Those color of the candles are in reflection of and run parallel to what we see on the market watch, okay? Now, what I want to kind of do is I want to kind of establish like what type of, how could we use this? Number one, some investors might consider this on an intraday basis. That's not our focus, but could. We could also do this on a daily chart. We could also do this on, let's say, a monthly chart. It could be applicable for stocks, okay? Options, okay, futures, and Forex. Okay, I don't know why, but living in Europe, I'm always interested by Forex. Okay, and the biggest thing, it could be used for the entries and the exits. And I want to repeat, this is a huge one. We're also trying to use this to adjust strategies when the color of the candle changes. Question mark. And that what that might be is maybe a stock to a covered call, okay? Or maybe a stock to a collar, okay? Something like that. Maybe it's, let's say, a short put to a long call, okay? And I should really say there, short put and then adding a long call, or a stock position, okay, and add more stock. So really, when we kind of see these color of the candles change, that can mean different things for different people. I gave you some examples of what that might be. Now, what I want to do is I want to kind of bring up a chart and kind of start to break down kind of how we can read this. So what I want to do is I want to go back to IXE, which is the consumer discretionary sector, and here it is. And what you're now going to notice is we have like where it was going green, 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 green. And just remember, green is your favorite friend, okay? When I used to ride dirt bikes, I rode Kawasaki. That's not a recommendation, but the fender was green. There was a reason for that, okay? So, because maybe it matched some of the candles on the chart. I'm just saying, not a recommendation, okay? Not a recommendation to ride a bike either, okay? Dirt bike, that is. Now, what you're going to notice is we go from green to purple. And what's the difference there? Well, what we can do is once you have this chart, we can, for example, go right to the test tube where it says edit studies. And what I'm going to do is I want to now go down to this shared script right there, shared trend. Now, when I click on that, how do we get there? Go to the test tube. And now what we're going to see is down at the very bottom, you're going to see a script, okay? Now, if you said, I don't know what's making those colors, remember what we can actually do is read, okay? And this is where we kind of had some problems lately where some people are asking questions, but they're not, I'm giving a concise answer, but there's no follow through. So it's like I'm talking to a wall, okay? Which is not really that great, okay? So the biggest thing is I want you to be able to click on that shared trend, and I want you to read, okay? What is the study doing? Read that, okay? Go down to this two. What is two? What's making the color? And it tells us stocks in one will have a dark red background. Scroll down to the next reading, okay? And we can see the stocks in that will have a light green background. I want us to read. I feel like my English teacher here, okay? But now I know how she felt when she told me that, okay? So now I've been fully punked, okay? So now what you're going to see is if I scroll down, I can see what is causing the colors of the candles, okay? And last one, 5, okay? Now, if this is too much for you, maybe you just kind of break this up in a little 2-minute segment each. I'm joking with you, okay? You can read the whole thing immediately, okay? Read that, okay? Now, what we're going to go ahead and do is, so when we see charts that are dropping down like this, you're going to see the color of the candle, A, reflects momentum. It affects potentially the strategy potentially chosen, but it also is showing the current trend at that time. So when we see these red colored candles, boo, it only goes up for 1 or 2 days on the light green candles, sells off again. 1 to 2 days on the light green candle, sell off again. Again, that is your classic example of losing momentum. You break the trend, okay? And then it goes from an uptrend to downtrend. And I'm going to talk more about that in just a sec. And I've never explained it the way I want to explain it here today. Now, the vice versa of this is when that stock goes up, gets its head above a 10-day exponential moving average, light green, it goes dark green. If you read it, you would know why that's doing that. And now what you're going to see is these colors, okay? Now, I want to kind of speak to what do the colors mean, okay? Is there any pattern that we should be made aware of? So first off, the purple and red, okay, color candles are deeper pullbacks, okay? These are flat out deeper pullbacks. This is where the price is below the 10 and 30 moving averages. Many charts in the market are showing those purple and red colored candles. And if you get red colored candles, they're red for a reason, because technically the price is bleeding down. Now, if we take a look at, let's say, the orange, okay, if we saw, let's say, orange, purple, okay, color candles, these are shallower pullbacks, okay? This means in this case that the price is most likely, or I should say in this case, price is above 30-day MA. And we're talking about the SMA, okay? So if we get an orange colored candle or purple, the price is still above the 30-day SMA, but we've lost some momentum, okay? But we have lost some momentum. How do we know we've lost some momentum? And it's not mom, it's momentum, okay? I'll just kind of go Momo. Price below 10. And we've said that historically many times before. If you fall below the 10-day moving average, you're losing momentum. Now, if we see these green, orange candles, this is actually where the trend is strong, okay? Momentum, okay, is strong. And we are having currently shallower pullbacks. My gosh, if we could say, what do I want? That's what we want. Price is above, okay, is above the 10 and the 30. Now, there are a couple stocks in the current market that have just this, Okay. Now, example given, if I pulled up a chart and I said, hey, can we go back to that SPG for just a second? Okay. Simon Property Group. And if we zoom in on this chart, what you're going to notice is we haven't even had an orange color candle. It's just green so far. Okay. But when you have like a strong upward trend, you might just have short, shallow pullbacks. And what I'm really referencing here is this period where it runs up and then there's an orange color candle, okay, or a couple of them, but the price is staying above the 10-period moving average. Green color candles, orange candles, okay, shallower pullback. Do you want a shallow pullback? Yes, you do, if you're bullish. If we run up again and there's a little pullback, the shallow pullback, okay? So remember, if you go from green, orange, purple, you're losing more momentum. We want to go from green to orange, okay? And have the price stay above the 10 where you do not shift from orange to purple, okay? Now, the other thing I want to kind of say is also is these candles can help us identify, let me slide this over. It can also help us identify kind of short-term price patterns, a little run up in price, pull back, right? Run up in price, pull back, run up in price, pull back. So if you see green candle, short-term flags. Also these. Okay, good. Sound went out for just a sec. So what you're going to notice is here, these orange green color candles, higher low. Orange green color candles, there's your higher low. Orange green color candles, higher low. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, the reason why we have these is we want people to be more comfortable with what's happening on the chart. Okay, these help read where are the higher lows, what is the dominant trend, etc. Now, I also want to kind of say if we went to an example like PG, okay, so if I looked at the example given like PG, we just saw an example of like making higher lows. But if we go from, let's say, green to orange, that could be where we're going from, let's say, making a higher high to a pullback. Running up in price again, going from green to orange, there's another higher high to a pullback area. Run up in the price, it goes from green to orange, there's another higher high in price, and so on. Okay, and it just kind of keeps going on there. But when we shift from green to orange, okay, that's most likely where the higher high is being made. Let's write that down so we can remember this, because I want you to study it. When we go from green to orange, okay, color candles, this is most likely where the higher high is, okay? When we go from, sorry, I'll fix that spelling. When we go from orange to green, this is most likely where the higher low is, okay? So that's kind of the nuances, but those are important pieces there. Now, what I want to do is I kind of want to talk about some of the things we're seeing in the current markets and get practice, okay? So with what I've kind of explained to you and wrote down, first off, is it helpful that I write this down? And the purpose of me kind of writing it down in more detail is I want you to study it, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to pull up a couple stocks that I think are going to help us really read what's going on. So I'm going to pull up a stock like Dow, okay? And if I zoom down on a stock like Dow, a lot of people will ask the million-dollar question, are we at a bottom yet, okay? Well, what you're now going to notice is this should now become a little easier to see what's going on. So remember what I just said to you. If we go from, let's say, green colored candles to orange, this is probably telling us that we've made a shorter term higher high, okay? And then it fell down further. What makes it go red? Price down below both moving averages. Now, remember, if you cannot go up for longer than 3 days, okay, and then only to see the red candles coming back, are we probably at a bottom yet? The answer is no, we're probably not at a bottom. We have negative short-term trend and negative momentum. And if we see these red colored candles on the chart, I'm probably going to be taking a nap. Because if we start to see these red colored candles, those sellers are still in control, and there's not a whole lot to really do if you want to be bullish, because you want to see the color of the candles change. So if I go forward to the very next day, I get a little green. This is the first sign that, hey, we could be going from maybe a winter type scenario of a blizzard to the downside to maybe where there might be a tulip, okay, coming up through the hard soil and maybe starting to turn back bullish. This is the first sign of anything, okay? But now we can see that. And the second day, I want to see something where we can get past 3 days and start to get above an area of resistance. Now it's a little bit more interesting. Better, okay? And now what you're going to see is we want to see these color of the candles stay green, at the worst orange, and we want the price to sit above the moving averages. So here's the thing. If I told someone, hey, we do not want to be invested in or take new positions when there's red colored candles, you wouldn't need a whole lot of information past that, okay? Because if there's red colored candles, the sellers are still in the control, and you probably don't have a bullish entry on the chart, or you don't have one. If you're saying, I want to bounce, red colored candles are not entries, okay? If you want to break out, red colored candles are not entries, not based upon what we're talking about. Now, red colored candles might be for someone who's trying to build a position and buy into a sell-off. That tends to be more a strategy that maybe institutions do, where they're buying big positions and they're more confident upon their analyses of what could happen on the chart. Now, I'm going to kind of just show a couple other charts, just kind of put them on there. Look how nasty some of these charts can get, okay? Lots of red in there. When it went up, limited, fell back down, red, 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 lots. When it goes up, let me zoom in there, didn't go up for very long. When you look at this chart, you want to ask yourself, what is the dominant color of the candle that I'm seeing? Is it dark green? No, haven't had one. Light green, just for a couple of days, and the dominant color of the candle is red. Who cares? Well, that tells us about trend. If we're seeing dominant, let's say red colored candles, we know that it's in a bearish trend. If I pull up a stock, for example, like Dash, okay, and I looked at a stock like Dash, you're going to see, if I ask you that question, hey, what is the dominant color of the candle that we've been seeing? Well, I mean, do we see a lot of dark greens? Orange, purple, okay? What do we see here? Okay, dominant is dark red. Dark red is priced down below 10 and 30. Negative momentum, negative trend. Boo, telling us something about trend and momentum. If I pulled up a stock, last one, bad ones, DEC, okay? Which, I know some of you are thinking, hey, got DEC. I thought about that myself, but let's just laugh. So if we take a look at this, when that price goes down below the shorter term moving average and it can't get back up above, okay, this is kind of where the stock is getting bruised, like on our skin, black and blue, right? What that looks purple, that's why we labeled it as that purple color. And what you're going to see is lately, we only went up for one day, barely got our head above that 10-day moving average, just nothing but selling. Now, I cannot tell you, now you might not be one of them. And if this ain't you, you're the luckiest person ever. There's a lot of people that have stayed in stocks that were downtrending, hoping that they would come back, only to lose not just money, but time. So when we look at our portfolio, we're trying to only have the stocks in the portfolio for the most part, unless we're playing option strategies where it's probability analysis, etc. We're only trying to have the charts where they're above the moving averages. Now, it's one thing to say that, but I like to see proof that that's really what the investor's doing, okay? So we're trying to own stocks in this scenario. That is where the cheddar, cheese, Geld, money, dinero, whatever you want to call it, could potentially be made. There's really the momentum and the trend is at your back. If the investor is really holding on to stocks or buying into stocks into here, this tends to kind of be a sad face, kind of distraught, chest pain potentially, hope, things like that, to where there is not really a trend or momentum in your favor, and you tend to think, man, investing is really, 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 really difficult. Well, sometimes we make it so, okay? Now, I want to kind of speak to kind of the flip side of this, okay? When we take a look at, let's say, a stock example given like JP Morgan, and if I were to say to you, hey, what's been the dominant trend of JP Morgan here? Now, let's kind of take what we've learned so far, okay? And now I want to kind of look at some questions. When we go from red and we start to go to that light green color, this could be that low, okay? Now, when we go from, let's say, green to orange, I said, and I wrote down before, this could really be like a higher low area. Then it ran up again. There's the green and orange again. And remember, we said these green and orange, if we're having shallower pullbacks, that area could also be another spot of a higher low. Now, wait, if people struggle with actually, for example, seeing, let's say, trend, could you just go from, let's say, this higher low to that higher low to down to this higher low? Could you just kind of connect those? And the answer is for sure. Okay. So if we said, what do we really want to see? When we get a pullback, we would prefer just only orange color candles. If we dip down below the 10 period moving average for a day and that color turns orange, we want that to be the stock to regain the 10 as soon as possible so that green color on the candle can change, okay? Now, I want to kind of just see, I want to kind of stop right there and see if there's any questions, okay? Now, Eddie, and I want to kind of look at this. I know you're looking at me, but I haven't a headset issue lately. Eddie says the sad part is the person must do that hold on to losers as an ingredient to becoming an investor. I think it really kind of comes back to is that, number one, people don't like to make decisions, okay? Number one, they don't want to make a decision. They don't want to be wrong, okay? And the other part of this is it's also mentality or psychology where they say, I don't lose until I sell, okay? So some of it is skill. Some of it is like application. Some of it is psychology. We're not scared in actually like making a decision, okay? And the other thing is we know that psychology of I don't lose until I actually like sell, that's not really true. So you're rationalizing, and we talked about that last Thursday, okay? Now, just real quick. So I want to make mention, yeah, Dean, I'm so glad you said, look at TMUS. Let's pull it up. So one of the things I made mention of, and I want to kind of go back to this for just a second because I wrote this and I just want to restate this. And I'm glad, Dean, you pulled this up. So one of the things we actually said, okay, the purpose of the trend script is to see momentum, trend, support, and resistance, and price patterns. And we're going to get more into price patterns in just a moment, okay? But one of the things we actually said is one of the things why someone might use a trend script is to adjust strategy when the color of the candle changes. Example given, okay, TMUS, okay? So let me give you an example of what this looks like, okay, on the chart. So as we zoom in now, everything was going great. So just because of the color of the candle all 4 or 5 days last week doesn't guarantee that it's going to be that way today, okay? So what you're now going to notice is if we zoom in on this, if the investor was long the stock like the paper money is, they might say, hey, James, I got exactly what I wanted. A short, shallow pullback, price stayed above the 10 period moving average, but then all of a sudden the price falls down below the 10 period moving average, and it's currently trading below the 10, but above the 30. Okay, noted. That is why the color of the candle is purple. Now, when some investors see that, okay, and this is based upon their practicing of this, they might say, you know, I have a stock position, but I might want to consider a covered call. because now we're kind of going from where there was a strong upward trend to now I'm in that pullback. Now, this kind of really goes into this next piece, which is how do we see the price patterns? Okay. Well, we know that the green color candles is like the pull, the upward trend. If we see, let's say, flags are going to be orange / purple color candles. So, Dean, if you just asked me on Timu's, what might the investor do given what we've just talked about? They would say, I might consider a covered call here because now we're kind of pulling back and I'm going to sell a call against that. And this is why we always talk about liquidity and starting with stocks that have liquidity to begin with. Okay. Now we could say, might I consider, the investor might say, I'm going to sell the 185, sell the 182.50 and see if this stock can stay above a plateau of support. Just because it has an orange color candle doesn't mean that the intermediate trend is broken, but it might come down to this 177 and just consolidate. Okay. So that's how the investor might use the trend script on the market, on the chart itself, and kind of change strategies. Okay. Now, I want to also, for example, go back to something just real quick. So the second thing I want to kind of bring up is more examples on this. So one, I want to take a look at Triple M. Let's look at some different charts. So one of the things I kind of was bringing up is price patterns. So remember, when we get these colorful candles that are non-green, okay, these signify potential bottoms, higher low areas, equal low areas. Guys and gals, that's as easy as it gets, okay? Take the color of the candles that are not bright, not that dark green color, and I'm just using a little marker here so we can see this. These areas where we have these orange, purple, red color candles, these represent higher lows on the chart and or equal lows. If we were to say on this chart, has Triple M broken down? We cannot say that, okay? We'd have to say that Triple M, we actually still have a darker green color that we've been sitting on about the last, let's say, I don't know, 5-7 days. And the horizontal support is still holding. How could we see the horizontal support? Well, if you look at those look at the color candles that are not dark green, think of those as pullback candles that are orange, purple, or red. The difference in orange, purple, or red is the severity of the pullback, okay? So if we looked at, let's say, Triple M, we would say we kind of have maybe like a diagonal line of support and or a horizontal support. If I kind of sit on this chart, where do we kind of see the highs? Probably right about where we are. Triple M is not broken down. It's one of the stocks that's really kind of showing some relative strength. Now, I also want to bring up what Carlos asked, Orlando. And if we take a look at Orlando's question on Adobe. So remember, we said before that you can see flags when you see orange, purple color candles. Let me zoom in on this so we can see this even more. We know that the green color of the candles, duh, we might say, that is the pull. Captain Obvious. But if I said, well, where's the flag? Where did it start to pull back? There she is. If we talk about a short, shallow pullback, we want to see the orange, purple color candles, okay? Now, why do we care about seeing the orange, purple color candles? That's the flag, okay? Now, why do we as traders care about that? Well, because we are marking where the top of the diagonal or horizontal line is to take a trading signal off that. If we're sitting this orange and purple color candle, unless someone's trying to get in pre the breakout to the upside, whether it breaks diagonal resistance or horizontal, they might say, I don't have a signal yet. It hasn't turned light green. It hasn't turned dark green. And in the current market environment, we see a ton of that. So if you're sitting on your hands right now, I understand, because that's really what we see a lot of right now. Now, when would someone be trying to buy into that flag? If they're trying to build a position, okay? They buy inside the flag, and then they maybe consider adding to the position if it were to break to the top side. How would I know if it broke to the top side? The color of the candle would change, light green or dark green, okay? Why would it be light green versus dark green? Well, if we actually, in this case, it would be dark green because if the price goes up, it would be above both moving averages. The only time you get the light color green candle is when the 10-period moving average is below the 30, okay? So if that price is already great, if the price is already above the 30-period moving average, you're not going to see a light green. It's going to be a dark green color candle, okay? A little nuance there, but I think that's an important answer, okay? Now, if we looked at this right now and said, is this hold? Now, by the way, do we have that on the chart? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this little test tube right there. And we have potential hold dots on the chart. Are they turned on? Well, let's double check. I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to do is it says show hold. Yes. When I go back and look at this chart, if I said, do we see hold on this chart? And the answer is, there's no hold dots, okay? There's no hold in here at all. So what is it saying? It's not a setup yet. Not if we're talking about a bullish bounce. Not if we're talking about a breakout, okay? Now, but it is showing a flag. So the purpose of actually when you see a pullback off the top, what do you really want to do as a trader? Draw a diagonal line that lasts typically about 10 trading days. And when you fall from the high to where we are, about 10 trading days, you really start to get a better idea where that resistance might be. And if you start to see the price getting above that and closing above that, you're probably going to be exiting that flag and going back into that secondary run-up in potential price. So don't just sit there and say, oh, the color candles are orange and purple. The takeaway from that, draw the diagonal line from the high, touching the number of bodies, as many as you can over the last 10 days, 10 trading days, and be watching to see, can the prices get above the diagonal line? Many stocks are not doing that. That's why some stocks keep falling. Other example before I go back to questions. So remember, how do I see the pull? Green color candles. How do I see the flag? Orange to purple color candles. When I pull this back up, there it is. I'm going to go back and say, okay, I see orange and purple color candles. I want to draw a line, go back to the recent high, preferably 10 days or more, and this is going to give me a line of resistance. Now, the difference on Tesla versus, let's say, Adobe is we have a green dot, and that green dot is showing close above the high of the low day. The earnings is on tomorrow. And you're going to see in this case, some investors might be trying to buy ahead of the earnings on that. So be aware of that. So be watching, let's say, to see if Tesla could break out of diagonal resistance, Adobe, which is right there as well. The other one stock, which we won't have time to hit, is on O'Reilly's. Okay, now I want to kind of test you a little bit. And I want you to imagine that your friend calls you up and says, hey, do we have an entry signal yet? And they say, the stock I want you to look at is Google. Or do we have an entry signal yet? What would you say? Just yes or no? So on this chart, we would have to say no, right? We've kind of been in that orange and purple, which means a slight pullback. But if you go into the red, it's a deeper pullback. And you're seeing that it's trying to get back above, but there's no green color candles yet. We would say it's not yet. When we pull up a stock like NVIDIA and said, hey, is it the time to get back in yet based upon a signal? Well, we're still sitting on red color candles. Based upon what we talk about, looking for stocks above a 10-period moving average on exponential or whole, we don't have that yet. So there's not a signal on this because we're not above the 10. Okay? So on Disney, we would say, nope. Costco, it's a great company. It may be true. We just don't see momentum. We drop down in price, red, 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 red. Sellers are still in control. Why is it red? Price is still below both moving averages. Okay, so what does it matter? Well, remember, we're not trying to buy into red color candles unless you're doing dollar cost averaging and you think you're at a low. We are trying to get in these periods right here where we go light green. Okay, this is the earliest time if we're talking about stocks. And then this right here, if we can get the price above the 10-period moving average, this is really what we're going after. Okay, if someone says, I'm trying to trade trend and momentum, that is what we're looking for. This right here does not look like that right there. So sometimes the answer is no. You do not have the signal yet. You do not have the momentum at your back, and you do not have the trend at your back. And it's okay sometimes to say no. Okay? I think that's the hardest thing for sometimes people to say. Okay? Now I got to wrap this up. Okay? So the biggest thing that we talked about here today is, number one, is we wanted to talk about the trend script. And remember, that trend script could really be used on the market watch, the monitor page, the scan tab when you run the results, and also on the charts. This trend script could, for example, be used on what it was meant to be applied for, which is a 10-day exponential, 30-day simple. But if you said, no, James, I kind of like this, could I use the trend script on a faster setting on like a 10, 20 whole moving average? This is on chart number 3, and the answer is yes. But as you know, the whole moving averages are weighted, and that probably just means the signals are going to be a little faster. So if you said, I understand that and I know that, then you could look at that chart. That is chart number 3 of 3 there, okay? And so what you're going to now notice is the whole moving averages are going to track the price of the chart more closely, or the candles more closely, because they're a weighted moving average. We wouldn't say that's bad. It's just kind of going to be closer to the current candles. Now, here's what I want to do. I only put out 2 scripts. One script, which I will put in the description, is going to pull this back up, is right in the market watch. We mentioned on the column. The second script that I gave was for the charts, okay? I am no longer putting on the X page those scripts anymore. I am going to control who gets to see those scripts, okay? Historically, I would just put them on there, and people would sometimes try to take a shortcut. Some people acted like going to X was like going to dentist and doing a root canal. For some people, it's very difficult. So I will control who gets to see those scripts that we normally had versus just putting them out there, and people don't really, for example, really respect them or use them. Nobody wants to feel used, okay? You don't want to feel used. I don't want to feel used. I will not post them there anymore, okay? I tried to make that historically where people could just see all the scripts you used in one shot. Some people got that, some people didn't. So now we're just going to do 1 or 2 at a time, okay? And I will actually just post those in the description of the video, okay? I would still give those out, okay, in the description of the video. But if you want to see what we had before, reach out to me on X, and I could actually give that. But I will now be the gatekeeper of who sees that versus just putting that out there where everyone can see it, okay? Where it really wasn't respected or used properly. So just answering that question, Joe. Now, remember, with what we discussed here today, I want you to go out and I want you to look at your recent entries and exits. And I want you to kind of look at these in context of the colors of the candles, okay? You had some exits lately. Where did you get out? What color of the candle was it, okay? Also, I want you to go out and actually kind of look at your timing of this and practice, okay? Now, remember, this could be done for a scan, existing positions to evaluate momentum and trend, but also existing positions to change strategy. That's how we really use this script. So thank you so much for your comments and your participation. I'm glad we cleared everything up, and that's the way it's going to be, okay? That's just the way it's going to be right now. And I think if we do that, we'll be in a better spot. So thank you so much, Ben, for answering those questions in chat. Stay tuned for our class coming up on cover calls and short puts. And with that said, have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.